Glad you're here. Please. Good morning. Good morning to all here in person and all those online who are watching live and in the future. It is Sunday, August 14th of 2022. I am Reverend Kate Walker, and I am so honored to serve as the minister of this beloved community, and I've just returned from summer break with a rejuvenated heart and body. You are welcome here. If you are watching now or next year, you are welcome here. If you are a long-time member or brand new, you are welcome here. We are Unitarian Universalists, one people of many beliefs and origins, sexualities, and genders. We are all growing, we are learning, and all are loved. Just as you are welcome. And we are committed to working for justice wherever oppression has woven into the fabric of life. If this is your very first time with us, if you're curious about who we are, we'd love to hear from you. If you have not already done so, please visit our visitor desk right at the front in the foyer or on our website. Just go Google First Unitarian Church of Pittsburgh and you'll find our website. And you can, at the bottom of that main page is a form to fill out to get onto our newsletter and find out about all the things we are doing. And after today's service, as every Sunday, we have a social hour, which is on Zoom. If you'd like to join us, just send an email to First Unitarian Pittsburgh, all one word, firstunitarianpittsburgh@gmail.com. I am live in the sanctuary, and I have an incredible group of staff and volunteers who are helping bring this service to you. And on behalf of all of us, thank you for being here with us. And today's service is my annual Question Box Sunday. And I welcome your questions on topics that you hope I might actually know something about. I do reserve the right to ask an actual expert. And I know this is not Stump the Chump. Some of you have sent in your questions by email. I've got them as of 8 o'clock this morning. And for those of you who are present, you should have been offered the opportunity for an index card. If you didn't get one and you want one, please wave and an usher will bring one to you. And I invite your questions today. And the ushers will then pick up your questions during the offering. I won't have seen them ahead of time, so make sure your language is appropriate. I'm sure it will be. I also want to just remind you, September 11th is a Sunday this year, and it is our annual multi-generational worship service and in-gathering as we launch the fall season. And part of that service is an important ritual of gathering of the waters, which is a ritual that's been around in our faith for the last 40 years or so. We invite you to bring water that you've collected or you're about to, because I'm reminding you, from your summer. It could be from your home, from a rain barrel, a stream, a river, or an ocean. Bring samples of your water and we will collect them, and then we bless those waters. And I use them for child dedications, to bless wedding couples, to bless those who are our members who are being interred. I bless our garden with this water. So please remember to gather that water for our worship service on September 11th. And any of you, my beloved members and friends, if you are experiencing any financial difficulty, please, we do have some temporary assistance available. You're welcome to call me at the main church number, or you can send me an email. It's minister@first-unitarian-pgh.org. You can find that on our website. We do have a special fund. I want you to know that you are not alone, and this community can help. So I now invite you to take a deep breath and arrive in body and spirit wherever you are. This is a time of worship, however that word means to you. Let go of the list of things to do. Be present in this time, in this place. Be present with one another. Picture yourself connected to our beloved Unitarian Universalists gathered around the country this morning, as well as all of our beloved members of the religious faith community. Welcome. Welcome to you all. We turn to our chalice lighting, the symbol of Unitarian Universalist faith, and I offer these words from Julianne Lepp. We seek our place in the world and the answers to our heart's deep questions. As we seek, may our hearts be open to unexpected answers. May the light of our chalice remind us that this is a community of warmth, of wisdom, and welcoming of multiple truths. May this light guide us in our faith and the search for answers and questions. Please join us in our voices as we gather for 354, We Laugh, We Cry.
We sing our song. We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone. But most of all, we need close friends we can call our very own. And we believe in life. And we have strength of love, and we have found a need to be together. We have our hearts to give, we have our thoughts to receive, and we believe that sharing is an answer. A child is born among us, and we feel our special glow. We see time's endless journey as we watch the baby grow. We thrill to hear imagination freely running wild. We dedicate our minds and hearts to the spirit of the child. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a time to be together. And with the grace of age, we share the wonder of youth. And we believe that growing is an answer. Our lives are full of wonder, and our time is very brief. The death of one among us fills us all with pain and grief. But as we live, so shall we die, and when our lives are done, the memories we shared with friends, they will linger on and on. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a place to be together. We have the right to grow. We have the gift to believe that peace within our living is an answer. We seek elusive answers to the questions of this life. We seek to put an end to all the waste of human strife. We search for truth, equality, and blessed peace of mind. And then we come together here even to question truly is an answer. Good morning. Today is Question Box Sunday, and in the spirit of asking questions, I'm bringing to us a story of one of our Unitarian ancestors who asked all kinds of questions, not only questions about theology, but questions about obstacles and how to overcome them. So as I tell you this story, listen and you'll hear all the different ways that this person questioned and how it led them to where they are, or where they were, because this was 200 years ago, or more than 100 years ago. So, long time ago, long-ish, 100 years ago, on the island of Jamaica, there was a boy who was named Ethelred Brown. And he went to church, like a lot of people did, and one day, the pastor said a line, and everybody repeated it, and it really was weird to him. The pastor said something about the Father being God, the Son being God, and the Holy Spirit being God, but they're all one, and there's only one God. And he continued to talk about the Trinity and unity, and somehow there being three gods, but also one. And so he really liked math, and he thought, 3, 1, that does not equal each other. That doesn't actually make sense. And he decided right then and there as a boy that he didn't believe that. It just so happened that that same day in the afternoon he went to his uncle's house and he saw a pamphlet at his uncle's house that said, "There is one God. The Lord our God is one God." This turned out to be a pamphlet written by Reverend William Ellery Channing, who is one of our ministers who led a real charge about justifying the Unitarian theological position. So he was really, really a strong voice on that. Ethelred Brown picked up this pamphlet, he learned about it, he read that and some other books, and he decided, I'm a Unitarian. But there weren't any Unitarian churches in Jamaica. So how could he be a Unitarian? He would have to do it on his own. So he grew up. He married, he had a wife and child, he worked, and eventually he decided again that he really wanted to be a Unitarian and he needed to find out how. So he wrote, I love this part, he wrote a letter to any Unitarian minister in New York City and sent it. And eventually he heard back. And he found out that there was a school that you needed to go to in the United States to be a Unitarian minister. So he went to the United States, where he was promptly sent back because his papers weren't right. So he spent another few years making sure his papers were right, and then he went back to the United States. And he was admitted to the school for Unitarians. Of course, at this time, he was the only Jamaican and the only black person there at the school. And although that he was ordained in 1920 as a Unitarian minister, his teachers didn't have a lot of hope for him that he was going to be a minister, because they said, well, white churches are going to want a white minister, and there aren't any black Unitarian churches, so you're probably not going to be one. But he went back to Jamaica and he decided to start a Unitarian church with very little money, very few people, and very little help from other Unitarians who were there. And eventually, he also decided to start another church, but this time he was going to go back to the United States to do it. So he moved his family to New York City, and he started the Harlem Community Church in 1920. And that was a very difficult time for him. His wife got very, very sick. One of his children died. He had to work an extra job that he didn't like, and he still had very little help from other Unitarians. And yet, for the next 35 years,
Ethelred Brown was the minister of the Harlem Community Church. And one of the songs we sing in the Gray hymnal, Singing the Living Tradition, is named for him, and it's called, very appropriately, I'm on My Way.
Heart and body, or perhaps at home, and $3.99, Vine and Fig Tree.
And everyone neath the vine and fig tree shall live in peace and unafraid. And everyone neath the vine and fig tree shall live in peace and unafraid. And into plowshares turn their swords, nations shall learn war no more. And into plowshares turn their swords, nations shall learn war no more. And everyone neath the vine and fig tree shall live in peace and unafraid. And everyone neath the vine and fig tree shall live in peace and unafraid. And into plowshares turn their swords, nations shall learn war no more. And into plowshares turn their swords, nations shall learn war no more. And into plowshares turn their swords, nations shall learn war no more. And into plowshares turn their swords, nations shall learn war no more.
Our religious community is made up of volunteers and staff, creating and hosting a variety of programming, even as we continue to stay safe during this time of pandemic. We rely on your financial support. Please take time to reflect on your ability to financially support this community. Donations by check may be mailed to the church office. Electronic donations can be made online through the church website or by texting GIVE to 412-435-1050 and following the instructions.
I'm keenly aware that many of you carry many sorrows and concerns in your hearts. And I'm keenly aware that many of our members have experienced things through the summer. You've been ill with COVID, your family members have been ill with COVID. Some of you have lost siblings and parents. And I hold you in my heart. And I'm keenly aware that many of you have had life celebrations, grandchildren being born and celebrated with birthdays, weddings, and I hold you in my heart, celebrating with you. Each of us walks this path, sometimes alone. Each of us sometimes stumbles or rolls on this path. But please remember, we are part of a community that is here to journey with you. I invite you to enter a few moments of silent meditation and personal prayer. Take a deep breath and be present here in this time and place. Spirit of love, hold us in our grief, ease our fear and anger and frustration. Spirit of love, remind us of this holy place, made holy and sacred by the presence of those we love, our friends and family, made holy by the presence of a God of many names throughout the ages, both known and unknown. Spirit of life, fill our bodies with your essence, with your energy, with your vibration of love and compassion. Spirit of life, we hold you in our bodies and hearts and reach out to the universe, hoping to touch the spark that lives in all of us. Spirit of justice, remind us of the force of compassion and love in the fierceness we have within us to help make this world better for each and every one of us. For all who are marginalized by race or gender or sexuality, who are marginalized for being who they are. Spirit of justice, remind us of the weight of our words, the weight of our actions. Remind us we can make a difference, be agents in this world. We hold in our hearts our own pain and suffering and those all around us, and let it remind us of the preciousness of community, the sacredness of life, and the strength of love. Blessed be, and amen. I love this service. It is so much fun. A lot of colleagues, you ministers do this question box, but some of my beloved colleagues get the questions way in advance. It's so much fun to not know what's coming. That being said, I will, for those who send it via email, I'm going to start with you because I had some advance notice. So, how do you cope with uncertainty? How do you know you are following the right path in terms of your religious convictions? I love this question. How do you cope with uncertainty? This is the heart of Unitarian Universalism, isn't it? And why I like to do Question Box Sunday, because we're always asking questions. And these days, we're recognizing more and more the reality of multiple truths, which, drives some scientists nuts. But how do you cope with uncertainty? I cope by having friends and colleagues that I can talk things through with. I read, I devour information and life experiences and stories. But I have to confess, maybe it's because I was raised Unitarian Universalist, I'm very comfortable with uncertainty. I'm really quite comfortable with not knowing everything. And there are some things we are certain about. Gravity exists. Anybody who has smashed their face on a pavement knows this. But there are so many things in life, and that to me is what's exciting. But it is having a certain comfort level with uncertainty that you know this is your home faith. And that not everybody is comfortable with that. But how do you know your religious convictions? I just keep processing life experiences, talking with friends, reading, and regurgitating everything. So I love that question. Keep asking. Does the foundation of Unitarian Universalism in its first 7 principles not adequately and completely cover the matter addressed by the proposed 8th principle? And revisiting the question, I begin to think that a church, unlike a secular government, does not need an affirmative action policy to make equitable inclusion. So this is a question that's coming from our current conversation within this particular church and our denomination about adding an 8th principle. Let me back up. For those who are new or not familiar with our faith, we have 7 principles that have been around since the 1960s. And we're thinking about adding an 8th one, which is specifically about being an anti-racist institution and holding ourselves accountable. And we're leading up to a vote in October for our own church about adding that principle. And a lot of people have asked, doesn't the 7th principles already cover it? So the Unitarian Universalists about 3 years ago asked a task force to ask that question. Are we an equitable, anti-racist institution? How are we doing as a religious organization? And that task force came up with a book about growing the circle wider. And their answer came back as they interviewed Unitarian Universalists, former as well as present, who are particularly people who are marginalized and people of color. And the answer came back very clearly from their experiences that we are not really living our faith as an anti-racist institution. Their experiences have been based on continued marginalization and oppression from the majority white Unitarian Universalists. Their stories have been so important to really listen to. Many people of color, indigenous, Asian, black, brown siblings have left our faith because they have experienced both overt and more subversive acts of oppression and marginalization. Their stories are guiding this discussion in these acts about adding an eighth principle. And what's different about this eighth principle is it's not just a lofty statement. It's a statement that says we're holding ourselves accountable, that we're going to engage in our bylaws and our actions and our how we hire, how we treat our staff, how do we treat each other in committee meetings, how do we treat our community and engage. So it's not just a nice statement of idealism, it's a statement of action. And it came from those stories of our beloved community of people of color who've said, we're not living up to our ideals, not even close. So that's the most important answer, I think, to that question. Over 200 Unitarian Universalist organizations have already voted affirmatively to add that eighth principle. And that says a lot about our conversations about this wonderful event, I think, in our movement to try and do more justice. The question is, what is your favorite book? Me. What is my favorite book? The one I'm reading? I have so many. There are too many. If I have to say, it would probably be The Tao of Pooh. The Tao of Pooh, Benjamin Huff. I love Pooh, and I love it the way it brought in Taoism. My favorite song, the one I'm listening to. Yeah, I love music. I love all forms of, well, not the heavy metal. No, I don't love that. In most country, sorry. But the one I'm listening to, I love George Winston. Thank you. Thank you very much. My favorite movie, that one is easy. Koyaanisqatsi. Koyaanisqatsi. That is a Hopi word that means life out of balance. And it's a visual, beautiful piece, Francis Ford Coppola, and the music by Philip Glass. And it's stunning. And it's just stunning. It's several years old now. It's been around probably, 25, 30 years, something like that. Yeah. I can't. Yeah. Koyaanisqatsi. I can send it to you later, but I know it starts with Koyaan, and then I get lost. Yep. Koyaanisqatsi. You can do, if you probably Google Philip Glass and Francis Ford Coppola, you can probably find it. Yeah. If I had, what would I do if I had a horse? Oh my God, that would be so much fun. I would be riding that horse, taking care of that horse. I would be feeding that horse and loving that horse. I would be so happy. I've always wanted a horse. And one of my church members in Alexandria had a horse. I was so jealous. Loving and riding that horse. What story from Unitarian Universalist history do you find the most engaging, interesting, or fun to tell at a party or to people unfamiliar with UU tradition? What story? I have to say, I will confess, I don't usually tell UU stories at parties. But were I to tell a story about UU history for people unfamiliar, I love the story of Ethelred Brown that we heard today. I just love, absolutely. Ethelred was just amazing. One of my favorite stories is Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, who was an amazing a writer and orator and just, amazing woman who just all over the Atlantic coast and into the Midwest, constantly preaching and talking. And Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, and she was African American, and she just beat down those color lines. And she was early 20th century, late 19th, something like that. Yeah, amazing. Born in Maryland, I remember that. I also highly recommend, this is a good book actually, The Prophetic Sisterhood. Cynthia Grant Tucker, Prophetic Sisterhood, came out several years ago. It's about a group of women Unitarian ministers who went out into the Midwest, which was the cutting edge of our country at the turn of the century, and started Unitarian churches. around, in Indiana and Illinois and Nebraska. But they started churches that weren't like this, with big lofty rooms and pews. They started churches that were designed like a living room, where people could gather and really talk with another. It was a feminist version of church that really contrasted with the New England tradition of everybody face forward and listen to me. It was beautiful. It was amazing. And it was needed at that time in the turn of the century. And the Unitarians didn't really support them, but that's all. Anyways, the prophetic sisterhood. It was really, really good. Okay, this is a big one. Ready? So what do you think is our role as a church in dealing with spiteful, dishonest, downright un-American voices that are being raised by the radical right? Should we be marching, picketing state, local, and federal offices? Should we be speaking out as Unitarian Universalists in print and other media? Are you going to address these issues from the pulpit? Are you going to take part in the You, the Vote movement? You get the point? Don't get me started. No surprise, this is from Ward. Yes, You, the Vote is underway, and we're going to put a welcome letter for anybody who wants to get involved with that. That really needs to be a lay-led. And the Unitarian Universalist Association has all the tools to help us get the vote out. Despite all the objections from some of the people who want to oppress the vote, we are going to make sure we get the vote out. It was incredibly helpful in winning a lot of the national offices 2 years ago. Really, really powerful. So yes, yes, yes. What is our role? We're an incredible progressive religious faith, and we do have a voice. And I'm actually in discussion with the board about what my voice is. I've gotten some mixed feelings or in the documents about that, but we're in conversation about what kind of voice how I represent this faith in the public space, whether it's letters to the editor or out there. So I'm looking forward to us figuring that out, and it's a really good conversation to have. But do we have a voice? Absolutely. But I think we also, Ward, need to be strategic and figure out how to use our energy and our focus efficiently and well, and not just spread ourselves too thin. Okay, and there was one more, a headline that my husband pointed out to me. Can Pittsburgh save the planet? I believe in inspiration. So yes, we can save the planet as a city that inspires other cities. And if we get it right, I think Pittsburgh could potentially inspire others from small climate justice projects to large climate justice projects. The key is, do we have the leadership in our government who make this a commitment? And that is something we can talk more about, since that's a focus of this church, is working on climate justice. How do we support our leaders to do what is necessary? And I think we could be inspiring to other cities. All right. Now on to you folk. How do Unitarian Universalists believe about, what do you believe about Jesus, and how do you feel about Jesus in your theology? Oh, what a great question. Thank you. So, as we heard in the story, The Time for All Ages, Jesus is not a part of and a substance of God, part of the Trinity. And that was a theology that was created in the 4th century. If that theology wasn't created, we wouldn't exist. It's that simple, that we are Unitarian as opposed to Trinitarian. So Jesus generally is viewed as a human being, a rabbi, a teacher, someone who was prophetic, radically bringing messages of shaking up that time of oppression and marginalization in Jesus's community. So generally as a human being, some feel like he's on the level of a more prophetic, like Moses or Abraham, but we do have Unitarian Universalists who follow Christian theology, but it's with a more Unitarian slant. And I think that's important to recognize. In my theology, Jesus is a human being, a rabbi, a teacher, and who brought some incredible, powerful messaging. And that I think we need to listen to through the ages, how those messages impact us today and how they can inspire us. great question. Okay. What progress are we making on solar? Anybody from the solar team, any actions this summer? I know we're going to put solar panels on our RE wing, so I don't know what the progress is since I've been gone for 6 weeks, but are they up? September-ish. Thank you. There we go. Next month. But yeah, awesome. Next month. Excellent. In these times of loose moral compass, what word or phrase can we carry with us to keep the faith as Unitarian Universalists? In these times of a loose moral compass, what word or phrase can we carry to keep the faith as Unitarian Universalists? I'm going to unpack in another sermon a loose moral compass. That's so full and rich. How do we keep the faith? The one that has been hanging on for me since our General Assembly in Portland, Oregon, is the phrase that comes from my minister's association, which is because we need one another. Because we need one another. And for me, my faith is about community, staying connected to the larger whole of the people, as well as all that is sacred in life, because we need one another, which when you unpack it means we have to listen to one another, we have to openly share with one another, we have to be curious, because we need one another. I don't know. And I think for me, that doesn't just stretch into the here and now, it stretches into our history with our ancestors and into the future with our children. Our ancestors needed us. Ethelwald Brown did some amazing things. And in the future, our children need us. So that's what keeps my faith. That's my phrase. What are your goals, dreams, hopes for our church in the next year? And what are your beliefs about a higher power? Well, that's a two-part question. Well, what are your goals, dreams, hopes for our church in the next year? Certainly one goal is to continue to keep each other safe. The COVID is still real. I'm going to be wrestling with some really helpful people about what to do. We're at a high rate in Allegheny County for infection rate, but CDC has just dropped and lowered some of their guidelines. How do we manage that? How do we keep each other safe in this community? That's an ongoing goal. Certainly on the pragmatic side, I'm hoping this year that we will really focus on our climate justice program with religious education, with worship, and with staffing and with leadership from the board. How are we going to do that internally, but also externally, really reaching out into the larger community, building relationships and making sure that we are acting in agency with other groups, not just trying to do it by ourselves. And I'm hoping to grow. So this is tricky, and I've been talking about this. Our membership has dropped a lot, and we need to stop that. So I want to say helping grow the church. I'd like to stop the hemorrhaging. Yeah, so let's find a way to keep people in our community and bring some people back and reach, and those who are coming through our doors, how do we connect with them and figure out what their needs are? Wow, that's a big one. And the other is prepare for General Assembly, our association's annual meeting, which is in Pittsburgh next year. So it's that third week of June, right here at the David Lawrence Convention Center, and we're going to need a lot of help and volunteers. We're hosting. So it'll be a multi-platform, people online as well as in person. Last year in Portland, this past June, we had, I think it was about 2,400 in person and about the same online. So I guess we're going to have more than that in person because we're back closer to the East Coast. So that's going to be a hoot. What are your beliefs about a higher power? My higher power beliefs are based in science. So it might be the string theory, for example. We're all vibrating and impacting each other. on minuscule levels that we're not consciously aware of, but it happens, and we impact each other in all sorts of ways. But also, the fact that we don't know what like 90% of the universe is made up of with dark matter. We don't know what's out there. I love that. So my higher power touches into all those unknowns, and whether or not we'll, the telescope, the James Webb telescope, those photographs. Do you know what blew my mind about that? If you haven't seen those photos, please look them up. How, despite all of our imagination with science fiction, Star Wars, Doctor Who, and Star Trek, we didn't come close to how stunning the universe galaxies are, right? We just thought it was pinpricks of light. We were so under-imagined what is out there in all those galaxies and those planets, and it's just kind of, I love that. Great to see you. You too, whoever wrote it. Practical, what are the practical ways we can affect climate and social justice in our community? As I said a few seconds ago, in partnership with other organizations. We can work on our own internal carbon emissions personally, as well as in our church, and which we've got a lot of work to do around there. But also, we got to be in partnership, particularly with those organizations and marginalized groups that are being impacted, the population that's impacted the most. Social Justice Intercommittee. And as a start, who are the groups and leaders to contact? Bob Schmidt, Stephanie Gannon. Anybody else want to throw their name out there? Do you want to be contacted if people need help? Barbara Litt, yeah. Yeah. But watch for more. Watch this channel. How do you make sure, okay, I want to make sure, I've got a few more, and if I don't get to it, I'll put it in the newsletter. How do you make sure that the quiet voices are included in important church decisions? Oh, yeah. Bunch of introverts here. How do we make sure that the quiet voices are included? And more than the VIM meetings every few years. I think the quiet voices included, there's a variety of ways, if we're in person, like a VIM meeting, making sure that we follow some sort of what's the word I want? That those meetings are organized so that the quiet people feel included, and those of us who are ready to jump in, don't jump in all the time. That we allow for some space. Surveys, reaching out with phone calls now and then from people who we haven't heard from a while as well. But it depends. So many of those quiet voices are shy and think undervalue. So it's also important to say your voice matters. And I think that's why sometimes quiet people don't speak up. They think they don't matter, or it's just me. But it's an affirmation that your voice and your opinion matters. But it's making space and reaching out in various tools. I've heard you were in some interesting places this summer. Can you give us some high points? Certainly. I was with Portland, Oregon for General Assembly, and then I went down the coast, spent 3 days with one of my best college buddies. And the Oregon coast is stunning. It's gorgeous. I'd never really spent any time there. It was gorgeous. And then in July, my husband and I and my mother-in-law drove up to Sault Ste. Marie, Upper Peninsula. Next stop is Canada. That's how far north we were. And it was beautiful. I'd never been up there either. Sault Ste. Marie, I recommend the Upper Peninsula. We were right on the water. It was really gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. And I just got back from Colorado on Tuesday, where I got to hang out with some of my college friends and some of my church friends. But one thing, I got to hike. And my favorite part was hiking up to about 11,500 feet, which is called Tree Line, on the Arapahoe Pass. Unless you're British, and then you call it the Arapahoe Pass. But the Arapahoe Pass, yeah, it was absolutely gorgeous. Yep. In times that you may have felt, oh, wait a minute, let me throw in. I did a 2-day bike ride from Pittsburgh to Rockwood, 105 miles. It was wonderful. Just me and my tunes. I love it. It was absolutely fun. In times that you may have felt disconnected to your spirituality or faith, how do you find your way back? Oh, what a great question. In times that you may have felt disconnected to your spirituality or faith, how do you find your way back? Attending worship that I'm not leading, attending worship that I am leading, singing hymns, listening to UU music, poetry, hiking, and hiking, getting out into nature, healing through nature. That's why I hiked up to 11,500 feet. Yeah, hiking, getting out in nature, biking, getting in my body, and then reconnecting and going to worship. Rinse and recycle. Go to worship, get in my body, be in nature. Yeah, absolutely. As the UU Church supporting people of Ukraine in any way, not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of. I know individually some of you have given some money to organizations here in Pittsburgh or nationally. Certainly the Unitarian Universalist for Social Justice, I'm not sure they're doing anything either because they're kind of focused more in DC and national issues than international. But our service committee is, if you're interested, as Unitarian Universalists, our Unitarian Universalist Service Committee based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, I know they are reaching out and building relationships, but I'm not aware of anything within this particular church. And if somebody's out there and wants to do something, speak up. We'd love to have you. Look at that. I leave just enough time to sing our way through to the community. How's that? Just great questions. Thank you. 298, wake now, my senses. Please stand as you're able.
Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with the web of creation your vow. Giving, receiving, as love shows us how. Wake now my reason, reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the truth. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. Suffer the limit and praise the sublime. Wake now, compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end. Wake now my conscience, with justice thy guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted the privileged place, but love embraces the whole human race. Wake now my vision of ministry clear. Brighten my pathway with radiance here. Mingle my calling with all who will share. Work toward a planet transformed by our care.
So we extinguish our chalice. The words are in the order of service, words that are said in Unitarian Universalist churches all across the country. We extinguish this flame. Please say with me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go forth, my beloved. Go forth and ask questions. Be curious. Be curious about the whys and the whos and the hows and the wheres. Follow those questions. May you find unexpected answers, renewing your life and commitment to love, compassion, and justice. Return again with more questions and love most of all. Blessed be.